Listen, there are a lot of podcasts about the Black church in the vein of Larry Reed and King Jives.
Yikes.
But if you're looking for a podcast about the Black church that's thoughtful, informative, substantive, stimulating, then you need to subscribe to Black Church Chats. That's right. I need you to hit that subscribe button and then also hit the notification bell so that you'll know every time we go live. All right, on to the show. What's up, everybody? Yeah, happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. We are live with the special Labor Day broadcast. I see Pastor David Collins. Salute to you. You're already in the comment section. I see my aunties, Auntie Melissa, Auntie Millicent. You guys are here as normal. Welcome to a special edition of Black Church Chats. We about to have a conversation today, and I think it's going to be a meaningful, important conversation. Before we dive in, I need you to like, I need you to share, I need you to drop some comments, and yes, I need you to subscribe. We are only 14 subscribers away from 1,000. We could potentially hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of this broadcast. So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe to this channel. I guarantee you will find this channel to be very, very, very engaging. All right, real quick, I do want to let you know that my third book, Jamal's Journey to Jubilee, is coming out September 30th, y'all. 29 days until release. Jamal's Journey to Jubilee. This is my third book, and this one's for the kids. Jamal is an 11-year-old boy who doesn't particularly like church. But then on one Sunday after service, he goes on a magical journey with his dear Aunt Lula, and his life is forever changed. Y'all, this is my third book, and it is my best book. Yes, it is. It's phenomenal, y'all. So pre-order that now. You can go, well, not now. Stay for the broadcast, and then after the broadcast, go to my website to pre-order Jamal's Journey to Jubilee. Y'all, again, I was in my bag when I wrote this book. So yeah, I see my friend, my brother, Reverend Charles E. Nelson. Salute to you, sir. Good to see you. I see my other friend and brother, my homie, Pastor Veda, is in chat section. Yes. Shout out to young Jamal. That's right. Y'all follow Pastor Veda. Is He a Real One Radio? Y'all follow him, and you'll get some substantive content there as well. That's my dog for real, y'all. Shout out to Pastor Veda in the chat section. All right. I don't like to keep y'all waiting long, and y'all are probably eating barbecue now, or you're on your way to eating barbecue, and so I don't want to hold you up from eating your barbecue, but we need to have a conversation about this entire Joel Tudman, Henry Fernandez Fiasco. And let me actually put some respect on their names. Bishop Joel Tudman, Bishop Henry Fernandez. What's up, Carol Bob? Salute to you, man. Glad to have you here. Let me say this from the outset. Disclaimer. If you're here looking for the tea, if you're here looking for the gossip, if you're here looking for the what went down, what happened, does he have some inside information? There are 1,000 other YouTubers doing that right now, speculating, trying to spill the tea, trying to say they know what actually happened when really they don't. This conversation is not tea. It's not here are the details or here's what I think happened. No. We're about to have a deeper conversation, a more substantive conversation around church government. Why? Because, listen, a whole lot of people are upset. And for those of you guys wondering, what the heck is he talking about? What's going on? You're not aware. I'm I'm gonna back up the bus in just a minute. And I'm gonna lay it all out. But a lot of people are shook. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are angry about the departure of Bishop Joel Tudman from the Faith Center. And some of the anger is warranted, but some of it is, y'all, listen, when you know better, you do better. And if you knew their structure at the Faith Center in terms of government, how the church is ran, how decisions are made, if you knew that on the front end and you were aware of how leaders are selected and how leaders are deselected, if you're aware of that on the front end, then all of this fallout would be unnecessary, because you would walk in knowing, okay, this is how the church functions. This is how decisions are made. This is how people are brought into the organization. This is how people are released from the organization. This is where the balance of power lies. This is who makes decisions, how decisions are made. Cool. So you're able to join the church with both eyes wide open. But unfortunately, y'all, we don't do that. We don't join a church saying, what is the governmental structure here? Because I want to know how decisions are made, how leaders ascend, how leaders are given the boot. Not only do we not ask that question on the front end, but we don't, most of us, we don't seek to understand these questions biblically. Let's be honest, and this is rhetorical. I'm not asking you to put anything in the comments, but how many of you have done a deep biblical study on church government and how local churches should be governed and ran? We're so worried about manifesting. We're so worried about prophetic shifts. We're so worried about all the frivolous things that we aren't looking to understand how a church goes about making decisions and governing the flock. And that's huge, because now, y'all, there are a lot of upset, disgruntled, affected people, mad people, hurt people, angered people because of church politics. And that could have been avoided if people sought to understand these things biblically, develop a biblical position, and then seek a church that aligns with said position. So let's back up. Pastor Joel Tudman, pastor at the Potter's House, came up under Bishop T.D. Jakes and rose to prominence there at the Potter's House, became really an internationally known preacher there. Months ago, about 6 to 8 months ago, it was announced that he was going to be leaving the Potter's House and he would be succeeding Bishop Henry Fernandez. Now, Bishop Henry Fernandez has pastored the Faith Center Church in Sunrise, Florida for over 30 years. It's a mega church, very well-known church in that area. Bishop Henry Fernandez, very well-known religious figure. So this was announced. They did podcasts. Bishop Henry Fernandez did a podcast announcing this. It was announced at the Potter's House. All of the stuff, the send-off was publicized. A lot of fanfare, a lot of hoopla. And so Bishop Joel Tudman goes to Sunrise, Florida, to the Faith Center Church with the expectation of succeeding Bishop Henry Fernandez. To make a long story short, because I don't know the backstory, and none of these YouTubers pretending like they know the backstory either. Two people know the backstory. Henry Fernandez and Joel Tudman. That's why we're not going to waste time on all the details. I don't know the details. You don't know the details. We don't know. All right. It was announced yesterday, Sunday, that Joel Tudman, no longer the senior pastor at Faith Center Church. This was a very shocking announcement. Some people consider it to be abrupt. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me let you see the announcement for yourself. Here's Bishop Henry Fernandez announcing the departure of Joel Tudman.
Many of you received a letter from me, and yes, the letter is authentic. I know many of you may have a lot of questions and concerns, but for 34 years, I have led this church as God has led me. And I can assure you that God will continue to direct us. Now, I'm asking all of you to continue to trust my leadership. Please be careful of your assumptions. I know there are a lot of questions, and for some of you, you may be thinking we demand answers. But I hope that you will understand, for all of us, this is a very difficult decision, a very difficult situation. But as I stated, I sent the letter to all of our members yesterday, and I hope you would have a chance to read it. The letter was sent to advise you that Pastor Joel Tudman is no longer the senior pastor of the Faith Center. Now, please, I ask that you continue to pray for him and his family. That's what Christians do. Although the situation is unfortunate, we're obligated to pray for one another. What you're not going to get from Bishop Henry Fernandez is the back and forth, the name blaming. That's not my character. And for those of you who are streaming, I know the comments already there. You have no idea. So I hope that as you post your comments, that you're posting it based on how you're spirit led and not emotionally driven. There's a difference. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do before I do my job, and that is to bring hope to people and to preach the gospel. I'd like you to stand with me all over this auditorium.
Then they proceed to pray for the church and for Bishop Tudman. And that's how it went down. Now, again, if you're waiting for me to say Bishop Henry Fernandez is wrong, Bishop Joel Tudman is wrong, if you're waiting for me to say I know the details, I got the tea, I got the backstory, this is the wrong broadcast. Not going to do it. I don't know. You don't know. We are not about to launch into speculation. We're about to make this a prayer from matter. But we're going to talk about an underlying reality. Question. And I wish there were members of the Faith Center Church on this live right now. Because here's the question. If you were considering becoming a member of the Faith Center Church, and you knew that something like this could or would happen in the future, would you join? Shout out to Vanna B listening from the Bay. Shout out. If you were aware before joining the church that a leader that you love, that you had an affinity for, could potentially be removed without notification, without conversation, would you still join? And therein lies the deeper question. Because knowledge is power. And knowing the way a church makes decisions, JM, salute to you, sir. JM is here. Knowing the way a church makes decisions, knowing where the balance of power lies is exceedingly important. But y'all, we join churches because, the praise team is good. We join churches because, the children's ministries are good. And I'm not saying that these aren't good reasons to join churches. But if you join a church with a specific type of polity or political structure and you just ignore it or disregard it, and then something occurs that is in alignment with the polity of the church, then like, who's to blame for your anger and frustration on the back end of that? Maybe you should have done more research to understand how this church is governed. And listen, I believe that the overwhelming majority of people, overwhelming majority of believers, just don't even think about church government, church polity. Don't even think about it. And so when things like this happen, people are outraged. And I'm not saying that the outrage isn't warranted. I'm just saying, if you had the knowledge on the front end, then you wouldn't have the outrage and the hurt feelings on the back end. You would join knowing this could happen. And when it does happen, okay, well, this is the way things go. What's going on, Dr. Todd Battle? Salute to you. Oh, gotcha. Okay, Dr. Todd Battle. God bless. Salute, salute. So, what I want to do now is I want to empower all of you listening to me to understand different types of church polity. We're not going to have a Bible study today. The onus is going to be on you to reach a conviction regarding a specific polity based on your own study and based on what you see in the scriptures. If you're a part of a local church, this is a conversation that you can have with your pastor and your elders as well. I'm going to share with you the different types of structures, governmental structures out there. I'm going to share the strengths, the weaknesses, the pros, the cons, and then what you're going to do is you're going to open your Bible. You're going to open your Bible. And if you're Pentecostal, you're going to open your Bible. If you're Baptist, you're going to open your Bible. If you're non-denominational, you're going to open your Bible. And you're going to study this out for yourself. And you're going to develop a biblical conviction about these things and not just a traditional conviction. Listen, full disclosure, I'm Baptist. Okay, I pastor a Baptist church, but I'm not a blind Baptist. In other words, I'm not Baptist because I was raised that way, or I'm not Baptist because of tradition. I'm Baptist because of conviction. I'm Baptist because I've searched the scriptures and I've concluded this is what I believe biblically. Now, here's what I will say. This conversation around church polity, this conversation around church government, This is an in-house conversation. It's an in-house conversation, meaning if you go any way in this discussion, you are still within the bounds of Christian faith. So this is not like if you embrace this type of polity, you are somehow anathema, or if you if you adhere to this type of governmental structure, you are not a Christian. So let's not go there. Let's not let's not get kooky and crazy. All right, this is an in-house discussion. Church polity is a secondary, maybe even a tertiary issue. However, it is an important one, and we're seeing why it's an important one in this conversation around Bishop Fernandez and Joel Tudman. Now, here's a question from my brother Carol Bob. Is there a biblically correct one? If so, do another live and give it, because most do not. There's a biblically correct one, in my opinion. What I want people to do is to reach their own biblical conviction. Make sure it's a biblical conviction, though, not a traditional conviction. Lean into this conversation and care about it, because it could save you some heartache on the back end if you go into a situation with both eyes wide open. And here's the reality. Your biblical convictions should guide where you decide to worship. Your biblical convictions should determine what local church you connect to. So if you find a church that has great children's ministry and good singing, but their biblical convictions aren't aligned with yours on some important areas and aspects, then that may not be the church for you. And you need to find another church. So let's talk about it. Subscribe, y'all. If you haven't subscribed, I need you to subscribe to this channel right now. Listen, before we started this live, we were 14 subscribers away from 1,000. Let's close that gap. All right. So let's talk about the first model, church government model. And not first in terms of like priority or importance or the best or worst, but just the first one that I want to discuss. The Moses model. Let's talk about the Moses model. So the Moses model is essentially one man or woman rules it all. One man or woman has the complete and absolute authority to do whatever they want. Think about Moses of the Old Testament. Moses of the Old Testament was the undisputed, God assigned and chosen leader of the Israelite people. What Moses said was literally law. Within the Moses model, the pastor is unchallenged. What the pastor says goes. You can question the pastor, but you may not receive an answer. And he's not obligated to give you an answer in that model. It is completely 100% pastor-led. Some people are speculating that this is the model that Faith Center aligns with, because some people saying Bishop Henry Fernandez, didn't talk to the congregation. He's not giving any details. He's not giving any explanations. It was a unilateral decision. And so I don't know. I mean, I've heard conflicting things. I don't know. Salute to Rick Barboa. Good to see you, Doc. Mr. Biggs, Pompano, Florida. Good to see you. I see y'all coming on in. Come on in, y'all. While y'all come in and subscribe, right? So under the Moses model, the pastor has the final say and absolute authority. And you have to ask yourself, like, are you okay with that? Would you be okay going to a church where you can give, you can serve, but you can't really affect any type of meaningful change? And don't just ask yourself, are you okay with it? You have to go further and ask yourself, is that biblical? There are some people, even some pastors, that believe that the Moses model is biblical. That's their biblical conviction. And so they have structured their church in such a way where they are the final authority, the absolute authority, and in fact, the only authority. And yeah, they may have like a board, right? But oftentimes the board is just a rubber stamp. Oftentimes, like their wife is on the board, their son is on the board, like their best friend is on the board, and the board really doesn't wield any power. And so here, let's talk about pros and cons of the Moses model. Really, the I'm not gonna say the only pro, but the most pronounced pro that I see in the Moses model is really for the pastor. Listen, I'm a senior pastor, and if I thought it was biblical, I would implement the Moses model here in a heartbeat, because it just allows me to do whatever I want to do. There are also some other pros. Unity, right? You're far more likely to stay united. Now, it's not definite, but you're far more likely to stay united when you only have one captain steering the ship and you don't have anybody else making any real decisions. Because the people, they're aligned with this one person, this one personality. So what that one personality says, what that one personality does, trickles down to the rest of the community. And unity, I think it's probably easier to preserve unity within the Moses model. Okay. Here's some cons of the Moses model. Here's some cons. There's no pastoral accountability. And what do we know about pastors? We are sinful, prone to wandering just like the sheep. We can make mistakes, we can miss it. And where there is no pastoral accountability, look out. Abuse, all that stuff becomes far more likely. But if you join a church that operates within this type of model, the Moses model, and you know that on the front end, then you can't complain once Moses does what Moses wants to do. Moses says, I'm firing that person, and you knew that's the way the church functions and operates, then guess what? You have to say, okay, this is why knowledge is power. Knowing on the front end prevents being disillusioned on the back end. Now, is this Faith Center's model? I don't know. But this is absolutely a model that exists. And I'll say that it really doesn't even matter what denominational name is on the marquee these days. You can go to a Baptist church that operates within the Moses model. You can go to a non-denominational church. It really like denominational names are irrelevant today for the most part, right? And I think that's a problem, right? I personally think that if you're going to wear a name or a label, then you should do that on purpose, or else just don't wear the name or the label. If I go to McDonald's and it says McDonald's on the marquee, and I walk in that McDonald's and y'all selling tacos and nachos and meatloaf, I'm going to say this is not what I came here for. And I know that we live in an age where people don't care about labels, people don't care about titles. I guess I'm a throwback because I still think those things matter. All right, I digress. We talked about the Moses model. If you're thinking about joining a church, are you okay with being at a church that has this as the structure, the governmental structure? If you are, then you can't complain when Moses makes the decisions. All right, let's talk about the second model. I see Pastor Keaton Brown, my friend, my brother. If you're anywhere near Tampa, Florida, Keaton Brown, go see Mount Tabor Missionary Baptist Church. That's a good brother, good church. All right, so the second model that I'm going to discuss is the congregational model. The congregational model. I would venture to say that a lot of pastors despise this model the most. Because within the congregational model, guess where the authority lies? With the congregation. Within the congregational model, 51% majority vote. And that's the direction we're going. Within the congregational model, it's a bottom-up paradigm where the people have the final say. Most Baptist churches operate within this model. Now, again, it's 2025, almost 2026. So, like, the word Baptist on the marquee means nothing in a lot of local churches. But for some Baptist churches, they still operate within that model where 51% of the congregation decides. And a lot of pastors despise. I see my brother Nick Quint. A lot of pastors despise this model. Why? Because I mean, let's just be honest. If you're a pastor and you're listening to me, let's just be honest. Like, so you mean I have to subject my plans? I have to subject my goals to the will of the congregation? Like, come on now, we're pastors. Let's just be honest. We don't like to be overridden. If we feel like God is leading us in a way, if we feel like God is pushing us in a direction, guess what? We just want to go. All gas, no brakes, which is why we, like the Moses model sounds real good. And if I didn't have any biblical convictions, that would be the model. Because within the congregational model, oftentimes the pastor, it's a slow boat. The pastor has to gain the confidence of the congregation in order for their agenda to be enacted. Now, let's talk about pros and cons of the congregational model. Okay. Pros and cons. So I already talked about some of the cons from the pastoral perspective, but let's even talk about from the laity perspective, some of the cons. It is 51%. So what happens if you're within that 49%? You kind of got to go with the church, or you got to find another church. So there's a possibility for disillusionment there as well. Also, admittedly, the congregational model can produce church splits. It can produce church disunity. The congregational model can easily turn into a food fight. Let me tell you, I have heard horror stories of deacons bringing pistols to business meetings devolving into shouting sessions and all sorts of stuff. Like, yes, it's a potential byproduct of Congregational Polity. Okay. But let's talk about some of the pros. Let's talk about some of the pros. In the congregational model, what happened at Faith Center couldn't happen. It just couldn't happen. You couldn't have the pastor standing up before the congregation saying, I fired my successor, without the congregation weighing in. Oftentimes within a congregational model, there's more transparency. We have conversations. Let me interject a personal testimony. Those of you that have been a part of this channel for a while, you know that I pastored another congregation previously, and I resigned from that congregation. And the reason why I resigned from that congregation was because it just didn't work out. It wasn't working out. It wasn't. And I'm not the type, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight deacons. I'm not going to fight. I was there for a little less than a year and a half, and it wasn't going well. And I'm not about to, sit up here and come to church every Sunday and argue with you over stupidity. That's just not what I'm going to do. So I resigned from that church. And when I resigned from that church, people were hurt. People were upset. But I resigned from that church after having church meetings, conversations, discussions. When I gave my resignation, it was, I think, a 90-day notice. So it wasn't abrupt. I continued to pastor during that time, continue to have conversations with the members collectively and individually. And then I left, and some people left with me. And in between leaving that church and being called to the church that I pastor now, it's about a 7-month period. And the people that came with me, we started meeting at one of my friends' church, kind of an unofficial gathering, but we were meeting. And it was so refreshing just to share with them on a regular basis what was going on, what I felt the Lord was doing in my life. Some were wondering, are you going to plant a church? Do you want to be called to a church? It was beautiful community building transparency, where we sat down. I let them ask me questions. Some of them were very hard questions. I asked them questions, right? And that was healthy. And all of them, when I became the pastor of this church, all of them ended up joining this church. Not because I said, y'all, if I go, you go. I said this to them. I said, you guys need to pray. You guys need to be led of the Lord. Just because they're calling me doesn't mean that you're supposed to be there. And it was healthy and amazing. And guess what? That transparency continues today. And within a congregational model, there are more discussions. There are more questions asked, questions answered. Now, I understand that sometimes, you can have shading stuff happen within congregational model, but we're comparing and contrasting, and we're talking about what's typical. All right, so we've talked about the Moses model. We've talked about the congregational model. Let's talk about the next model. Now, before we talk about the next model, I need y'all to subscribe. Listen, before we started this broadcast, we were 14 subscribers away from 1,000. Please, y'all. I want to end this broadcast with 1,000 subscribers, which means I need at least 14 of y'all to hit that subscribe button, become a part of this community. All right. The Presbyterian model. the Presbyterian model. So within the Presbyterian model, the authority lies with the session. Thank you. So Pastor Keaton says at 990, we need 10 people to subscribe. 10 people to subscribe. Do that like now. All right. So you have a group of elders, pastors, that govern local Presbyterian churches. This group is called a session. They are elected by the congregation, but once they are seated and elected, they are accountable to the presbytery. So the presbytery would be an overarching governing body of elders and pastors that kind of govern the sessions. But within Presbyterian government, it's elder ruled for the most part. Elder ruled means the authority lies with this group of elders. So it's different from the Moses model in that it's not just one guy or one lady that's doing it all or making all the decisions. Now you have a plurality of elders, and it's different from the congregational model because at an elder ruled church or a pastor ruled church, the pastors, they make the decisions for the church. And so you'll find this model at Presbyterian churches. This is one of the reasons why you have the Presbyterian denomination. All right. Presbyterians, it can't be Baptists because of polity, right? Baptist churches, by and large, are congregational. Presbyterians, they have a different biblical conviction. And they believe in elder-ruled government. So let's talk about the pros and cons of the Presbyterian model. Okay. Plurality of elders. Here's some pros. There's accountability in numbers. So you don't just have one person making all of the decision. As a matter of fact, in a lot of Presbyterian circles, they consider themselves equals. So the session at the local congregation, they are equals. They consider themselves equals, right? Also, you have a pro. You have the sheep shepherd dynamic that's kind of kept intact. See, here's one of the cons of the congregational model. The imagery that's used in the Bible of sheep shepherd, it's there for a reason. Okay. It's not just this imagery isn't used arbitrarily. The sheep shepherd dynamic is a dynamic where the shepherd ultimately is an under shepherd serving at the behest of the good shepherd, Jesus Christ, but the shepherd leads the flock. And within the Presbyterian model, you have shepherds leading the flock. So the Presbyterian model seems to kind of uphold that biblical imagery and treat it like it's meaningful. But let's talk about the cons. Again, within the Presbyterian model, the congregation really doesn't have much say. The congregation just kind of goes along with whatever the elders want to do. Within the Presbyterian model, here's also something that you have to think about. You can have a lot of double dealing going on within the session. So you may not have infighting within the congregation, but you can have infighting with the elders. Now, you have a plurality of elders. You can have one elder that says, no, we need to do this. Another elder that says that we need to do that. And then you have disunity with the elders. And then, of course, that's where the session is supposed to step in. But sometimes there's a lot of politics takes place within those, within those elder teams. Also, you can have, even within the Presbyterian model, you can have like the guy that's really like, yeah, we have a plurality of elders here, but wink, wink, there's still the guy that's making the decision. And it could be a facade. It could be, a presentation without any real substance. And you can also have the Moses model within the Presbyterian structure. Okay, so that's the reality. That's the reality. So listen, I'm not just flapping my gums, y'all. The reason why I'm taking you through this is because I want you to study these out and reach your own biblical conviction. And then you join a church that reflects your biblical conviction. Why are you Pentecostal? Why are you Baptist? If you study these things out, and you come to the conclusion that, I see in Scripture more of a congregational model, yet your background is Pentecostal, you're going to have to have a deep conversation with yourself. Same thing. If you're Baptist and you study the Scripture and you say, well, I see more of an Episcopal model. And what's happening, y'all, what's happening today is that there's a whole lot of confusion, because you just have people doing stuff. Got Baptist on the name, on the marquee, but we operate under an Episcopal model. And that's the next model I'm going to talk about. So you walk into the church because it's your biblical conviction that like the governmental structure should be congregational, and it says Baptist on the marquee. You're like, okay, you're a Baptist church, so that means that you hold to the Baptist distinctives, right? Not necessarily. You got a whole lot of Baptist bishops. All right. And then in non-denominational settings, it could get real messy. Because you could have a church that operates within the Moses model where there's one leader, yet that person has the word bishop in front of their name. And that suggests like an Episcopal model. So if you're a bishop, that suggests an Episcopal model, which is a top-down model, which means, and we're getting into the Episcopal model now, which means local churches are governed by regional governing bodies led by bishops and things of that nature. So the local churches are not autonomous. Within an Episcopal model, you have regional governing bodies, and you have governing bodies above that, all the way up to the top of the food chain, which is the presiding bishop, the Pope, right? And so you're within a non-denominational setting, you're using the title bishop, which suggests an Episcopal model, but the church is autonomous, and the church operates within the Moses model. So why do you have the word bishop in front of your name? What is that? What? Because that title suggests, and it's a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion. Look, we're at 995 subs. 5 more subs. Get us to 1,000 subs. Please do that. So listen, this is the type of confusion that exists out there in the church world. There's a lot of confusion. And listen, y'all, I don't want to hurt y'all feelings. I don't want to make y'all mad. But y'all do know that non-denomination is a denomination. Y'all know that, right? That's we non-denominational. Yeah, okay. Most of the time, what non-denominational means is we don't have a denominational name on our marquee, but the residue of the denomination that we came from is still very prevalent and predominant. So we're non-denominational, wink, wink, but we're really Baptist. We're non-denominational, wink, wink, but we're really Pentecostal. And you have all this confusion. And y'all, I think that that's some of the problem. 998, y'all, 2 more. Y'all let me know when we hit 1,000, because when we hit 1,000, I might have to dance, y'all. I might have to dance on live when we hit 1,000. All right. Nick says non-denomination is Latin for we are Baptist. All right. And this could be some of the problem with the Faith Center. Bishop Henry Fernandez suggests Episcopal church government. But I doubt that the Faith Center as a church is under the authority of any other bishop that can, like, who can remove Bishop Henry Fernandez? In a true Episcopal model, Bishop Henry Fernandez can be removed just like Joel Tudman was. But I don't think anybody can remove Bishop Henry Fernandez. So it's like, what's going on? What do we actually have happening here? So the Episcopal model. Y'all, my bride is on here, y'all. My wifey's on here. You see her in the comments. Lady Robertson, that's wifey, y'all. She's asking which dance. I don't know, babe. I might have to break out the Running Man from 1992. If we get 1,000 subscribers, we get 1,000 subscribers, 1992, right? I may have to break out the Running Man. Y'all keep an eye on how many subscribers we got. All right. All right. Because we're trying to hit 1,000. All right. So we talked about the Episcopal model. And I see a comment from Mark Hutchison. And this comment is a good comment. Mark Hutchison says there is zero confusion in the AME church or AME Zion church. Maybe we need to get back to that. Why is he saying that? Why is he saying that? Because AME churches, AME Zion, they're connectional. I don't, and you have to enlighten me, Mark. I don't know of any AME church, and there may be some out there, particularly the bigger ones, that say we are AME or AME Zion, but we're not going to adhere to the prescribed polity of our denomination. That's prevalent within Baptist circles because of the autonomy of the local church, and essentially Baptist churches can do whatever they want to do. But I don't know of any AME churches, even the biggest one, like some of the biggest ones, like Floyd Flake in Queens, where if you're an AME church, you just say, nope, we ain't going, nope. And so there's clarity. When you join an AME church or an AME Zion church or a CME church, you know this is what the government looks like. It is connectional. It is Episcopal in nature. Every local church is governed, and there's a clear hierarchy. And he even said in his comment, y'all, where's that comment at? Because it was a good comment. He even said in his comment, maybe we need to get back to that. I think so. I think 2 things need to happen. I think we need to think a lot more deeply about church polity as leaders, as pastors. And we need to understand why we do what we do biblically. And we need to align with the quote unquote tradition that best kind of fits our biblical convictions. So if you believe in Episcopal church government, fine. But why do you still want to be Baptist? If you believe in congregational government, that's fine. But why would you join a church that operates within the Moses model structure? Now, not only do I think that we need to get back to that, Mark, but I also think that lay people need to become more educated. And I think that lay people need to enter into this conversation and study these various structures and reach a biblical conviction for themselves so that they will join a church with both eyes wide open. They're not sitting at the faith center like, and then when something like this happens, they're disillusioned. No, they join the church knowing the governmental structure, how decisions are made. So I think it's a both and. I think leaders, pastors need to be more clear. I think lay people need to do their due diligence and study. And I think we need to stop joining churches simply because they give us goosebumps. I think we need to have biblical convictions, and we need to be led by those biblical convictions. And there's so much aversion today, when it comes to denominations and stuff like that. Listen, nation, because I believe that it expresses my biblical convictions in shorthand. The name on the marquee for me is not necessarily a hill to die on. In other words, I'm not going to say that you're not saved if you're not Baptist, but for me, that name, Baptist, reflects my biblical convictions. And so rather than putting on the marquee all of the biblical convictions, it is all encapsulated in that one word. And how, listen, this is what we expect from our restaurants. This is what we expect this is what we expect. We expect our restaurants to be true to the brand. But church, not so much. Not so much. Not so much. Not so much. All right, let's talk about some more models. Are we at 1,000 yet? Somebody check. Are we at 1,000 yet? Are we at 1,000 yet? Somebody check. Somebody check to see if we're at 1,000 yet, y'all. Because literally, once we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will get up. You will see me do the running man on live YouTube streaming. All right. I want to talk about the next model. It's the elder-led congregational model. Elder-led congregational model. Elder-led congregational model. And y'all, this is the model that we've adopted. Oh, wait. Hold it now. Hold it now. Hey. Oh, y'all can't see her. Y'all can't see. Y'all need to see. Hey. $1,000 subs. Yeah. Woo. 1,000 subs, baby. Yeah. Woo, y'all don't know how hard it's been. Don't forget the robot. Okay. All right. Woo. Y'all don't know how hard it's been. Y'all don't know. Hammer time. Listen, I can't do the typewriter. That's out of my range. I can't do the typewriter. Oh, thank you, wifey. Yeah, I need to calm down because I do have asthma. I do. I am asthmatic. Is that, hey, Shotty Mills in the building, my sis. Yes. And and that's meaningful. Okay, let's get back to the conversation at hand. Let's get back to the conversation at hand. All right. Okay. Yeah, the way my asthma is set up. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the elder-led congregational model. And this is the model that we've implemented here at New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church. And this is the model that got to work on that cardio. You're right, Mark. I see my friend and brother, Pastor Kwame Crosby here. Salute to you. Time to go full prosperity, Pastor. All right. Elder-led congregational model. So the elder-led congregational model, the congregation still has final authority. However, they are led by pastors that still continue to provide oversight in the way that the congregation makes decisions and understands the issues. And so within an elder-led congregational model, you have the elders leading and you have the congregation, and this is the best of the elder-led congregational model. You have the congregation as sheep affirming the leadership of the elders through their vote. A vote still takes place, but when the elder-led congregational model is fully optimal, you have the sheep that have been taught, so they understand the shepherd-sheep dynamic, right? So they understand that they are sheep and not the shepherd, but yet they're still empowered to have a say-so in the direction of the church and the ministry that they belong to as well. Now, let's talk about pros and cons. A pro. Let's talk about cons first. Cons of the elder-led congregational model. Cons. Yeah, again, you can have disunity. And yes, you can have situations where the congregation and the pastors aren't on the same page, and the congregation votes against the pastors. Now, let me say this. In the 2 years that I've been the pastor of New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church, I've never lost a vote. What I mean by that is, when I believe that the vote should go a certain way, 100% of the time, it's gone that way. Why? Because I spend time educating, informing, and where there is trust. See, this doesn't work. The elder-led congregational model doesn't work where there is not trust. The elder-led congregational model doesn't work where the pastor hasn't taught and hasn't labored to teach. But where there is trust, then you'll rarely find the congregation opposing the pastors. Now, another con of this could be, pastors that abuse this system. Pastors can easily abuse the elder-led congregational model. How? You can take advantage of the trust and confidence. You can take advantage of the trust and confidence of the people. And you can lead the people toward voting against their best interest. You can. Pastors can be manipulative. Yes. Another con is then the elder-led congregational model. the more you grow, the more risk there is. Because again, all it takes is 51%. And you might have harmony 1 minute, and then you grow, and here comes that one parishioner that amasses influence and says, no, I have a better way. And if they get the ear of the congregation, then now let's talk about pros, though. Let's talk about pros of the elder-led congregational model. So I think it's beautiful for pastors to feel like they are accountable to leading their sheep well in a tangible way. Like as a pastor, you can easily take your sheep for granted. But if you know that ultimate authority still lies with those sheep, then a loving pastor will be much more determined to reach out to the sheep, to get to know the sheep, to love the sheep, to help the sheep along in their understanding. So it pulls things out of the pastor in terms of how they interact with the sheep that wouldn't necessarily be the case in a Moses model. In a Moses model, y'all just do what I want y'all to do? Why do I need to spend time explaining? Why do I need to condescend and have town hall meetings where I lay out, right? Like, why? I'm Moses. Within this model, it does provoke something out of the pastor. Okay. Also, it empowers the congregation. Parishioners make real decisions. They have a real stake in the game. It encourages and fosters transparency. And so there's that. Now. Two other models that I'm going to talk about, because it's 3:11. We started at 2. I want to celebrate Labor Day 2 with the family. So I'm about to shut this thing down and bid y'all adieu. But there's two other models. There's the board-led model. This is more of a corporate structure where essentially a board of individuals govern the church. And the pastor works for them, right? The board makes decisions for the church. And you'll see hybrid models, right? Where like the board will have final authority over everything, but still may allow the congregation to vote on some things, right? The board-led model is, let's talk about pros and cons. Ryan, thank you, Ryan. Let's talk about pros and cons. If you have a capable board, that could be advantageous, because you have people with business savvy. You have people that can make wise, dare I say, pragmatic decisions. If you have a capable board, then you could potentially expand the church and, enter areas and territories yet ventured into. Okay. Here's another pro. Power is consolidated. So there's less potential for disunity, right? A lot of secrets. Everything kind of stays within the board. But where there's ignorance, you have a lot less potential for disunity, right? And so there's also A pro for the board is, they're mutually accountable. So there is some accountability with the members on the board. You don't just have one person making all the decisions in most cases with the board. Okay. Here are some cons, the board-led model. Sometimes the board can be far too pragmatic. And sometimes the board can view the church as a business primarily and lead the church in that way. And spiritual matters go by the wayside. Also, there is no office in the Bible called board member. And so it does kind of distort. The board members are, unless there's a pastor on the board members are essentially sheep, right? They're sheep. So it kind of muddies and sullies the shepherd-sheep dynamic, right? And board members, board members can also govern the church in a way where the board is looking out for the interest of the board rather than the interest of the congregation. That can happen, where it becomes like board centric rather than people centric. And now, like the people are under the thumb of the board. And so there's that. Now, let's talk about the last model. The last model is the deacon-led model. Y'all know what the deacon-led model is. If you're Baptist, where are my Baptist folks at? Where are my Baptist folks at? If you're Baptist, you know about the deacon-led model, where the deacons have total authority and the deacons make the decisions. And in a lot of our Baptist churches, that's the model. A lot of our Baptist churches, the deacons, I see somebody say the worst one of all. The worst one of all. Yeah. Now let's talk about some pros and cons. Okay? Let's talk about some pros and cons. Pros of the deacon-led model. Let's just be real, y'all. Deacons are usually the ones that have been at the church the longest. They've seen pastors come and go. They have the rapport of the community. And sometimes deacons can have, let's just be honest, sometimes deacons can have more of a personal touch than pastors. You know where all the keys are. All right. How does a church become deacon-led? Pastors leave. And guess who stays behind? Those deacons. And guess what happens? Those deacons begin to think to themselves. Those pastors, they leave, and they leave us in a lurch. We're the ones. We have to stay here. We have to answer the questions. We have to continue visiting the people. We have to continue figuring out how the services are going to be conducted. They leave. I forgot. I was reading an article, and I saw the statistic of the average amount of time a pastor stays at a church. And I forget, I don't know it off the top of my head. I forget. So you may know, some of you may know. It may be, put it in the chat if you know. But when I saw, I think it's like less than 2 years. And so if you have a church that's 100 years old, you've had multiple pastors. So, like, the deacons are left behind, and now, pros and cons. So I think I talked about the pros. Sometimes deacons do have that personal touch. Deacons know the community. They've been a part of the community for years. Let's talk about the cons. Again, deacons are sheep, and the shepherd-sheep dynamic has to be treated meaningfully. And pastors shouldn't be viewed as employees. They shouldn't be. Deacon-led model, pastors are often viewed as employees, even to the point where some pastors even required to submit their sermons every week before Sunday. And in some churches, the deacons approve the sermon that's to be preached. Average term is 3 to 4 years. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Marcus. So, like, deacons, again, they're not called, they are certainly leaders, but here's the distinction. Pastors serve by leading. Deacons lead by serving. There's a distinction. Deacons lead by serving. Pastors serve by leading. Deacons weren't meant to be the governing body or the governing board for a local church. They're meant to serve the church. And so I've laid out, I think, let's see, how many? 7 models of church polity. I have shown my hand. I believe that the elder-led congregational model is the most biblical. Maybe I'll come on at another time and explain why I've reached that conclusion and why that is my biblical conviction. But now it's time for you, layperson. It's time for you to take the baton and to study these things out and to become knowledgeable so that you understand these things on the front end. So that when you're considering joining a church, you can say, I believe that this type of church polity is the most biblical. So now I am looking for a church that lives that out. Then, as decisions are being made, as life is happening within the congregation, you have both eyes wide open. Now, I understand that you can walk into a church thinking this is the way they operate simply because it has a title on the marquee. I know that's not the case, but this is where conversations matter. Have a conversation with the pastor. Because God forbid, you're in a situation like the one at Faith Center, and now your heart is broken because you have an affinity for this person, and this person departs. And there's really no explanation, no reasons given. Again, I'm not getting to the weeds on this. I'm not this person right, this person wrong. That's not what this broadcast is about. But I'm just stating the reality of the situation. I'm thinking about the people. And they receive a letter. They've sat under this guy for 6 to 8 months. They get a letter. It's like, whoa. That could be avoided if you're knowledgeable up front and you sit down and say, hey, I'm thinking about joining this church, but before joining this church, can you explain the governmental structure here? Can you explain how leaders are brought in, how leaders are excused? That I would welcome somebody. So we have new members classes every second Sunday at our church, and I would welcome questions like that. We already have part of our new members class that explains our church polity and why we do things the way that we do. So that's a part of the new members class. But if they had follow-up questions, I would welcome that. That would be great. An educated laity forces the pulpit to get right. An educated laity forces the pulpit to educate themselves as well. And that's what I'd like to see. That's why this broadcast isn't about mudslinging. Oh, Bishop Fernandez, oh, he just an authoritarian. Joel Tudman, he trying to come in and be the hot shot. This broadcast ain't about none of that. Because guess what? If Bishop Henry Fernandez is operating within the governmental structure set forth by the congregation, then he has the right. He has the right to do it. And my question is, did you seek to find out if that could happen on the front end? Now, again, I'm not victim blaming. I'm not blaming the laity or the members of Faith Center Church, right, for being ignorant and things of that nature. It's y'all fault. Y'all crying. It's y'all fault. That's not what I'm saying. But my people perish. Why? For lack of knowledge. And so if Faith Center does in fact operate within a Moses model, guess what? Bishop Henry Fernandez has every right to stand up there and say, Joel Tubman is not here. We're not going to answer questions. Just pray. That's what happens within a Moses model. And I'm not saying that that's their structure. I don't know. But if it is, then it is. And if you don't like it, here's the beautiful thing. There are thousands of churches in America. Stop joining church simply because they shout you. Study to show yourself approved. And you could find, there are churches out there that will shout you and involve you in decision-making processes. There are churches that will shout you and inform you when leaders are being brought on board and when leaders are being excused. All right, so listen, I'm about to head out of here, but I do want to see your comments. I also want to take your questions. It is 3:27 again, y'all. I don't want to be here all day because I do want to celebrate this holiday with my bride and my babies. But I am going to start going through some of these comments and have some dialogue. Let's see. So Melody's Child and Key. I think most people join churches to connect with other people of faith, and I hope, but all the dumb politics get in the way. Yeah. And I think that's a good reason to join a church, because you want to be a part of the community. I think that's healthy. I think that's beneficial. Be a part of the community, and church politics do get in the way. But what I'm saying is understand the church politics on the front end. It is helpful to understand church politics on the front end. And now you have this podcast. This one, you need to save this podcast so that you can go back, listen to those 7 models, study and show yourself approved. Guess what? You're accountable now. When you know better, you do better. Have you considered or have you done anything concerning the development of the denominations in African-American churches? Yes, actually, I have a broadcast on this very channel where I talk about how, like, what let me, oops, my bad. Let me see what the title of that podcast is. I did it a while back. It's on here. It was live. Let me see. Hold on one second. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. So the broadcast that I did around this is entitled "Hating Denominations is Dumb, Unbiblical, and Anti-Black Church." So yes, I did talk about that. I invite you to check it out. All right, let's see some of these other comments. If you have any questions, comments, I would love for you guys to drop them in chat right now. Let's see. I'm gonna go up to some previous comments. Pastor Fernando jealous of Joel Tubman? Maybe, I don't know. And this broadcast is, is not about that. Maybe, I don't know. God ultimately knows, and God will have the final say in the situation. I have no clue. All right. Mark Hutchison says greatest benefit of deacon-led is when the pastor cannot spend money. The money needs to be spent through committees. Ooh, Mark, that is loaded right there, Doc. You're gonna get some pushback from a lot of pastors, Doc. You have a lot of pastors that believe that they should control the purse strings. And some pastors lean toward the Moses model for that purpose. They believe that they're not just called to be the pastor, but they're also called to be the CFO. And so that's an interesting take. I will say, me personally, I don't like to get caught up in the financial aspect of it. We have a CFO here at our church. We have a finance team here at our church. Money, all that stuff, pastors. Yeah, that can be, there is a compromising effect, all right, around money and the proximity to money that I think pastors have to guard against. So, yep. All right, let's see. Carol Bob says, study your Bible from at least Acts to Revelation to see if you can get an idea of how the early church government looked like. Yeah, but I would also say, Jesus says some things about the church. What did Jesus say to Peter? Peter was like, you're the Christ, right? You're the Son of God. Right? Jesus said, flesh and blood hadn't revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And Jesus goes on to say, all right, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail. Jesus also talks about church discipline in Matthew 18. If a brother sins against you, brother, sister in Christ sins against you. So yeah, I think definitely Acts to Revelation, but I think Jesus has some interesting things to say about how things should happen in church. So I think you want to also consider that as well. Thank you, Michael. You are giving valuable information. Thank you, Michael. I'm trying, Doc. I'm trying. God is good. I will find it. I think it's a great compliment to this polity discussion. Yes. All right, y'all. A lot of comments. Here's a comment. I appreciate your time and dedication to keeping this conversation clean. Yeah, Doc. Yeah, I listen. So many YouTubers are, I got the backstory. I got the tea. Not here. And so, it's just not what we do on Black Church Chats. All right. My friend and brother, Thinker's Bible, subscribe to Pastor Robert. Any form of government can work. Whether or not it will work depends on those implementing it. That said, the fewer involved, the greater the consequences of the decision. Wow. That message. That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. And again, y'all, listen, this is what I want to say. This conversation around church polity is similar to conversations around eschatology. How? Because whether you're dispensationalist, whether you're amill, whether you're post-mill, all of those perspectives fall within the bounds of orthodoxy. So this is nothing to anathematize one another over. Also, you can find, like, like when I'm not a Presbyterian. When I have conversations with my Presbyterian friends about church government, and they compelling arguments. And so same thing with eschatology, right? If you talk to a dispensationalist that knows their stuff, like, man, all right, but then if you talk to a amillennialist that knows their stuff, you're like, man. So what I'm saying is, you need to figure out where you land biblically, and then find a church that aligns to that. All right. It's an irony that the same people who in the beginning are open to feedback, when they're struggling to start churches, too often shut out the people's voices when they're getting big. Wow. Yep. All right, y'all. I'm about to call it a day. Thank y'all so much. Listen, we have a lot of exciting shows coming up here on Black Church Chats. As a matter of fact, I want you to stick around and see the shows that we have coming up. Let me also remind you, hold on, that my third book, available for pre-order, comes out on September the 30th. Jamal's Journey to Jubilee. This is my best book yet, and y'all, this one is for the kids. It is an exciting and magical story about an 11-year-old boy. Doesn't particularly like church, but then after one Sunday service, he goes on an incredible and unexpected journey, and his life changes forever. Y'all, this book is game changing, and I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. It is for young readers, 8 to 12 years old, but adults will enjoy the book as well. All right, y'all. I'm about to head on out. Again, stick around, check out the credits. You'll see the upcoming shows. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And y'all, we hit 1,000 subscribers during this broadcast. God is great and greatly to be praised. But guess what? We've only just begun. That's right. We have only just begun. I've been podcasting now in earnest for about 6 months, since April. My channel has been around longer than that, but been inconsistent, long stretches where you wouldn't hear from me. But since April, I have been treating this like a job and starting to see the fruit of that. Just hit 1,000 subscribers. And I want you to be a part of this community if you haven't subscribed yet. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Check out the upcoming broadcast. I guarantee you're gonna be intrigued by some of the upcoming shows. All right. Appreciate y'all. Happy Labor Day.